Let's start by cooking some rice. This isn't an omu rice tutorial per se, but since we're here we might as well do it. Next, prepare your eggs. If you haven't gotten used to using chopsticks to cook, I highly recommend learning them for their versatility and precision. Beat your eggs thoroughly to the point no thick trails are left when lifting your chopsticks out of the eggs. I recommend seasoning after beating the eggs, otherwise the salt seems to make the eggs split, leaving them an unappetizing dull color. I use 2 pinches of salt and 3 twists of pepper per egg, but developing a sense of the ratios based on personal definitions for pinch and twist is different for everyone. If you cook a lot, this discretization makes execution more consistent and intuitive, and is a fundamental for sight-solving foods you don't know the recipe to. Lightly mix the seasoning in and we'll move on to cooking the eggs. If you have clarified butter, I recommend using that as an homage to the classical French omelette, but oil with a higher smoking point works too. I use safflower oil because I'm a painting nerd. Set the heat to roughly 75% of the max temperature, but this will almost certainly differ between burners, so you'll need to figure out what works for you. I swirl the oil for coverage and pay attention to how it moves.
2,000 years later.
My indicators for when the oil is hot enough are looseness in how it moves and a fairly aggressive sizzle when touching my chopsticks with egg residue to it. You want the oil to be hot enough the eggs cook on top of the oil instead of mixing into it, but not so hot you can't control the structure of the eggs. It's a balancing act, and figuring out the right temperature takes practice. Pour the eggs in and let's get started. With a chopstick, swirl the egg vigorously. This hand is responsible for keeping the curd small so the inside of the final result is bavus like traditional scrambled eggs. Simultaneously, with your other hand, shake the pan back and forth. This hand is responsible for continuously dislodging the eggs from the pan using the inertia of the eggs as it cooks on top of the hot oil, making it so a proper pouch forms. For the love of Odessia, the final result is not achieved by rolling a thin layer. The pouch should be supple or soft and not leathery or crackly. Roughly 10% before the interior looks cooked, gather the eggs onto one side of the pan. Next, as if you were tossing vegetables,
you're pushing everything forward, and then you're giving it a quick pull back, and when you pull that pan back, you'll see it will hit that curved edge of the pan and flip up over itself, and that's the whole move.
Slowly rotate the eggs. You can use your chopsticks as a guide, and don't worry about small tears because the not quite cooked egg from the inside will mend them. Allow enough time between tosses for the pouch to form. Once the eggs have made a few rotations and have been properly sealed, it's ready. You don't want to rotate for too long, otherwise the pouch will become too thick from overcooking. Finally, change your grip on the pan and turn the omelette out for service. I realize I've made a mistake with the rice here. The rice needs to be shorter than the omelette's length, otherwise there will be tension at the tips of the omelette keeping it from properly fanning out. And make another with sausage the next day to show what it's supposed to look like. Once you've executed the technique, grab a spoon and enjoy.